In 1981, I was a sophomore in high school, and I decided that year to join the girls' basketball team. My feelings about basketball were, at best, indifferent. I had never bothered to learn the rules of the game, and I joined for all the wrong reasons. I wanted an excuse for getting out of my house where there was a lot of tension, and I mostly shut myself away in my room. It's what my small handful of friends were all doing. So I thought if I wanted to spend time with them, I was going to have to spend time with them on a basketball court. But the biggest reason was that there was a girl named Barbara also joining the team. And I had a huge crush on her and had for a couple of years. So I was hoping that by joining the basketball team, I might be able to get her attention. So basketball season started, and several things immediately became apparent. Our team was the bottom-ranked team in our high school league, and I was the worst player on the team. This wasn't only due to the fact that I had no idea how the game was played and couldn't be bothered to learn. It was also because, having never actually seen a basketball game played, I hadn't realized how aggressive and physically rough a game it was. I, in general, don't like any kind of confrontation, physical or otherwise, and so as a result, I was never anywhere near the net, which is where all the action is going on. So I was useless at guarding, and initially at scoring as well. Although I did get very good at shooting what's known as a moonball, a wildly, highly arcing shot made from a great distance from the net. In my case, usually from about 20 feet away. Barbara was what's known today as an alpha girl. She was not only completely out of my league socially, but she clearly liked boys. And her attitude toward me reflected my attitude toward basketball. It was one of indifference. And when she did notice me at all, it was usually to make fun of something about me. It was typically my clothing. Just as an example, one day I was sitting on the bench during practice, and I was often on the bench. And I was wearing our basketball uniform, which they were very cheap. We had these almost semi-transparent white basketball shorts. And I was kind of in this twilight between girlhood and womanhood, and the underwear I wore at the time was still kind of like the underpants of a child. And in this case, I had white underpants on with these red stripes down the sides of them. And Barbara came and sat down next to me. And I thought she was going to talk to me, and she did, but she looked down at my shorts and she said, "Racing stripes, Julie?" So the season went on in this vein, my not really distinguishing myself as a basketball player or as anything in Barbara's eyes. I'd had a number of encounters like this with Barbara, and that had been it. And toward the end of the season, there was a big dance going on at my high school. And I typically avoided these things, but my friends and I weren't there to dance. We were there to drink outside of the dance. And I had worn that evening what I thought of as my special pants. I was wearing these electric blue pleated peg-legged pants. You have to remember this was the early 80s. So I was standing outside the gym with my friends, and I could hear the dance going on inside. And I remember thinking, maybe Barbara's in there. I'll just go see. And so I went in, and not only was Barbara there, But her boyfriend was leading the band that was playing, and I wish I could remember the name of the band. It was a really stupid name. But I do remember the song they were playing was called Walking in Socks. And I just remember thinking, God, I can't believe she's going out with this douchebag. She should have picked me.
Walking down the street in my stocking feet. Walking in socks. Walking in socks is really neat. Walking in socks. Walking down the street in my stocking feet. Walking in socks. Walking in socks is really neat. Walking in socks. Put the socks on your feet and you walk up down the street. Put the socks on your feet and you walk up down the street. Put the socks on your feet and you walk up down the street.
And the band went on a break, and but they wanted to keep the dance going, and so they played something else over the PA, some recorded music. And Barbara and her band leader boyfriend were the stars of the dance, and they were in the center of the action, in the middle of the lights, twirling around, making out with an audience, which included me. And I thought, I have to put down this torch. This is never going to go anywhere. So I left and I went back outside to be with my friends. We were drinking bourbon out of a jar. And while I was standing out there, Barbara came out. And she made a beeline toward me. And she stopped in front of me and looked me up and down and said, "Nice pants." And then she walked away. My friends didn't know anything about my feelings toward Barbara, and it was this mystery, and they were looking at me and I was looking at them, and I think it ended with us all kind of going, what the fuck was that? And then shrugging, and it was just another weird interaction that I'd had with Barbara. Our team was coached by a woman named Mrs. West, who was a warm, enthusiastic older woman, probably in her 60s, who drove what I think was probably an original 1960s Dodge Dart. So it was a car that was like a boat. And I think she really enjoyed spending time with us, and she had a lot of affection for us. And at the end of the season, after our last game, which we of course lost, Coach West decided on the spur of the moment to take us all out for pizza. Because I think she wanted to spend time with us. I think she wanted to let us know that it was okay that we were the worst team in the league. But she clearly hadn't thought this through, because the only way to get us to the pizzeria and back was to pile the entire team into her boat-like car. And that meant everyone had to squeeze in and sit on laps. So I got in the back seat, and Barbara got in and sat on my lap. And we started off for the pizzeria, and it was really awkward. And I was expecting her to insult me, but she didn't say anything. There were a lot of turns on the way to the pizzeria, so the only way to keep her from falling off of my lap was to put my arms around her waist. And sitting there, I was feeling really nervous that I was making her uncomfortable. But she seemed to almost relax into my embrace, and she leaned back into me. I knew the pizzeria we were going to was at most a 10-minute ride. And riding in this car with her on my lap was the greatest feeling in the world, but it was also the worst feeling in the world because I knew she didn't care about me. And I knew that this was the closest I would ever get to her physically. And I also knew that it was probably going to be the closest I would get to anyone physically for several years until I got into college, and I was right about that. Every time we hit a stoplight, I was so grateful. Because the whole way there I was telling myself I needed to savor these minutes, savor this ride, and savor this feeling, because it was going to have to last me a long, long time. That was Run Out the Clock from me, Julie Threlkeld, your host. I honestly didn't expect to have to use one of my own stories this early on in the life of this podcast, but it's been a difficult winter, to say the least. We had a snowstorm almost every Monday. It was kind of hard to schedule getting people up here. And then I needed to get emergency oral surgery, which has resulted in a lot of lost time and a brand new speech impediment. Anyway, I'm working to line up some of my favorite storytellers to come in and record starting in May. So I would say get ready for bikini season, because that's probably when I'll have the next episode ready. This has been Modern Stories Mix, episode 3. For complete details about this episode and other episodes, go to modernstories.com, which is my storytelling site and which serves as a resource for New York City storytellers. In the meantime, have a great spring, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for listening.